is divisive.
I dealt with that.
That is one, because some would say it's equal to the use for blacks legal, and it incites that kind of negative emotions in persons when they hear that in a Guyana context.
Yeah, sure.
That's one. And two, you spoke about the beating of the drums and these whisper campaigns. Do you have evidence of such campaigns, and are you willing to share that evidence with us, the media, since you say you want to?
Yeah. The thing is that I hope that this doesn't happen these elections, because they did the last elections. And what it's like saying to me, you shouldn't mention racism. We shouldn't do anything about racism, because we know it exists. We know people speak that way. We know they actually use that language to campaign. But if we talk about it, then somehow we're exacerbating it. I believe I've always spoken against racism. You should really go after the people who used it in a derogatory way. Not me saying we need to fight this, because I'm not a coolie. I'm not a coolie. And I don't believe, so I take offense at someone saying, let's throw these people out. Let's throw these coolie people out. That's what was said. So you're now, when I want to fight that, you're saying it's evidence of some divisiveness. It is the same thing like if somebody says the N-word about Afro-Guyanese and they fight it, that the people who are fighting it are racist because they highlight it and fight it. I believe that we must, the mere fact that we are talking about it here today, the mere fact that we are talking about it, I hope that everybody would be vigilant on the campaign to see that we don't use that language, and that you, as well as as me, all of us, that you will keep your ears open to the whisper campaigns too, that you will keep your ear open and not have two standards. So if somebody gets into a little trouble in the PPP, like Rohi mentioned a lot of stuff, but they didn't take that. Look at I didn't want to get into this thing, but in APNU ad, the first ad that they had, I saw it in the Chronicle, about talking about decent leadership. They have a photo of someone who's been charged and now before the courts for pedophilia. Had we done that, put in our ad the picture of somebody and argue that this is change we want in Guyana, and put the picture of somebody who's before the court for pedophilia now, what would you have done to us? I cringe to think about what the Starbuck News and Kite News would have done to us. And here is a free pass. They get a free pass. In the ad that they talk about change. Don't our children matter? And then they're the same ones who would say we don't go after people who harm our kids. What is happening? Why the double standards? So that again I'm saying that we need to talk about these issues. We don't need to sweep them under the carpet. This country, the people of this country deserve it. When you go on the platform, we must assess people based on their plans for the future, what they're going to do about young people. Not about the whispers about them. Not about whispers. And this language, I criticized it. That's what I said. We must fight this. Had anyone used that sort of language in the PPP, we would have thrown them out. Read my speech. I'd send you the transcript of it. Okay, and you heard that part too. Okay, I'm glad you heard it. I said, had anyone used that sort, I was condemning it. Condemning it. Do not do that. Anyhow, yes, let's yeah. What's it? No, that's what I'm saying. From the last elections to now, I know I can bring maybe 5 persons who would tell you, we've heard this, we're in our homes, heard that. The drum beating and saying, coming to their homes, people walking down the street and shouting this. Would that be enough for you, or would the Starbucks News want me to sign it and, you know, have it notified, notarized and stuff like that? But your media, and listen, half of the time the people in here are aware of what I'm talking about. They just don't write about it because your editorial policy wouldn't allow you to do it. But we know the reality. Yes, this gentleman here.
Good day, sir. Handled out at HGP 19 News. Sir, a lot of young people, talking with young people out there in the community, they're asking the question, why is it we need to be reminded of what happened 25 years ago when we should be making comparisons with the rest of the world as to what's happening presently? You also talk about your opposition cutting student loans and things of that nature. Ultimately, the people of the country is what the party should be hearing about. And if you think your opposition, they're cutting student loan, definitely you're affecting students and so on. But when we look at ministers spending exorbitant sums, like the minister Pauli Sukai spending that amount of money to fixing our teeth, when we have probably matters that require that amount of money, like steering with school repeated and things like that, don't you think that goes against the vision of Chen and
yeah. Well, on the first point, if Greenidge was there in 1992, right? Greenidge most likely will be your finance minister. Are you saying we must not examine his record? This guy probably was the worst finance minister ever in our history. And that is what they're offering up to us again. The most unaccountable finance minister in our history, the one who presided over the massive growth of the debt from about 800 million to 2.1 billion in the period when he was Minister of Finance, escalation of the debt, the one who presided over the worst economic performance of the country, and the one who prevented the Auditor General from auditing privatization proceeds. And we must not pay attention to it. We must say, yes, you know, Greenidge is a wonderful person and he will do a great job. That's what we must do. We have to be eunuchs for the sake of the opposition. No, we are not. Because people need to see that connection. And you as a young person, you have never really experienced the hardship that women had. When under the Greenidge, the same Greenidge. Yeah, yes, but
as a young person,
yeah, but
I can tell you when I look at my other Caribbean colleagues.
Anyhow, it's not dialogue. It's not a dialogue. I'm saying it's not a dialogue here. I'm not some of the other people you have at press conferences. You ask me a question, I'm telling you. This is why the connection with young people. It is that somehow the opposition is counting on us not speaking about the past because you can't assess the change in the country. So most of you wouldn't have had a job in that period because there was only state media. And Adam Harris was the chief cook and bottle washer. Right, the state media. One state media. Most of you wouldn't have had a job. And you would have had your moms go to hours and hours at Guyana stores when there was a line there, and we had to get the horse carts, and not the horse carts, the horse guards, to keep lines there so that people would get a pint of oil. And when students were going abroad, they'd get $100. And that sort of thing. And when I got suspended from school several times for having a different view and speaking up about it. That was the lot of young people. So I don't doubt that today there are difficulties. I don't doubt that we still have to improve our education system, that we need to find more jobs for a lot of our young people. We do have where a lot of kids come out of school and they have 3 subjects CXC, and maybe they can't go on to study because you need 5 subjects, and then they can't find a job too because you need about 5 subjects in the public sector. And they have a white-collar expectation. They don't want to go back to manual labor like in most countries they would do. So how do we ensure that a lot of those kids get jobs, like expanding the ICT, maybe that's kind of white-collar jobs, etc. There are lots of issues we need to work. And I agree that although things might be hard, because if you have a cell phone now, you had 200 cell phones in the entire country in the past. You have 600,000 now. And so if everyone has a cell phone and you have to charge it, and you have to pay $5,000 a month to make calls or $3,000, then it adds to the cost of living. Or if people have a car now, and look how many cars. I remember Georgetown, we used to go there to buy cook-up at the corner, and we'd see one horse-drawn cart passing there like after half an hour on the roads. I just tried getting here, and it's a nightmare out on the streets. But if you have a car, then you have to buy gas, you have to maintain the vehicle. It puts more obligation. So at the end of the day, quality of life has changed. But people still feel they have to make ends meet because they have to now meet a lot of other expenditures that they wouldn't have had to make in the past. I'm not sticking my head in the sand that young people don't have issues or problems. I'm saying comparatively speaking, and that's what is necessary. You have to establish a baseline, like in any good analysis, to start the comparison from. And that's the baseline I'm experiencing. The next issue you talk about was that. Yes, I spoke with President Ramatara about it. And he said to me that he plans to change this policy. That whilst he can't take away benefits from constitutional posts, elected people, including the leader of the opposition, that he will move mainly to maybe a policy of insurance, so that the charges against the consolidated fund will be limited. So if, for example, you spend $300,000 a year to insure, to create a policy for the person, then that's the extent of the exposure of the Treasury. And I think it's a good policy. It's a good policy. And so he has recognized that this can't continue. And he has made it clear that he intends to change this. I spoke with him about it.
Were you shocked and surprised by it, sir?
I know how difficult it is when people are sick, especially people in elected office. When the leader of the opposition in my period fell ill, and the bill went very high, and then I said, what do we do? Do we not pay it and then get accusations of all sorts, or because this is a humanitarian thing, and then you work with these people? Or do we pay the bill? We eventually paid the bill for the leader of the opposition.
With
and
$4 million on cosmetic
yes,
treatment.
I agree that there are some issues that should not be funded by the state, that there are some issues that should not be funded by the state, and I think the president has made it very clear that he intends to limit people's access to the consolidated fund, and that the exposure of the Treasury will be only to the extent of the insurance premium. So that is correct. But I was very pleased to see that Mr. Granger said that he wanted it to be rule-based and that it should not be the subject of cabinet decisions. or historical precedent. He did an interview with the Starbuck News. And I had a moment when I said, really? Because when Otto Chung got a pension, it was 7/8 of his salary, got medical benefits as part of his conditions of service as president, although he served a small period, he got the medical benefits, he got electricity, water, all the utilities. We hired 2 nurses for him, provided vehicles, he got duty-free concessions, he got everything. When Desmond Hoyt had that, the same thing that I kept on after his wife called me after he died. And we kept the security, we kept the payment of the utilities, the vehicles, everything with her. That Janet Jagan had the same thing. They were all subject of cabinet decisions historically. And I argued that the cabinet decisions alone should not be the basis of a charge on the consolidated fund. So let's take what all the presidents had before and make sure that we ensure that we put it in a bill so that it becomes transparent. We take it to Parliament so that in future the head of the cabinet, the president, can't determine his own benefits. And we passed that. Then they said it's Jagdeo pension. Jagdeo took this for himself. The same thing that he's asking now for rule-based transparency that I did. And the thing is that Prime Minister Samuel Hines will get it, and Ramatara will get it. It make it look like it's Jagdeo. And I served 12 years, more than Hoyt, Janet Jagan, and Otto Chung combined. And maybe Dr. Jagan combined. And they still have issues about my benefits when every president prior to me got those benefits. And they made a big hullabaloo because I sought to make it transparent. After that bill, no president in Guyana can take any benefit without having to take it to Parliament, get it passed in Parliament. In the past, it was just simply a cabinet decision and the president headed the cabinet. So that is what we sought to do, but we got slaughtered for it. I got slaughtered, but he is proposing it. I'm glad to see he's coming around a little bit to the same thinking I had.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Jagdeo. You talked about Javon from Frontline News. You talked about 50 things that were changed.
This is a new news now, Frontline.
Yeah.
Oh.
You talked about 50 things that were changed.
I've been out of touch for a while.
Yeah. You talked about 50 things that were changed in Guyana. Can you list the top 3 visible things and how was it different before you were president?
Okay. Well, first of all, hope about the future. The same thing about, in my view, when the U.S. Embassy says, you know, the reason why we're giving out all of these visas is people are coming back. Hope that this country can realize people's dreams, and when they travel, they voluntarily come back. It is that change, the lifting of the weight from a society that wasn't free and undemocratic to one where people can say what they want without having to fear that somebody will kill them or harass them. A society where people can, on their own strength and their own capacity, make changes and progress. Now the state controlled everything. So freedom is one, the restoration of freedom. The second thing is, and I can give you how those freedoms were, what was done to establish, to restore the freedom. The second one was taking a bankrupt country that couldn't pay its bills and making it into the most vibrant economy in the Caribbean. That's the second one. And the third one, I think it's the elements of the future. The identification, the only country in the region that has identified new sources of wealth creation, an exciting future. Three things, if you want, in broad, I'm just giving you the broad areas I can tell you about. I can substantiate these with a list of projects, policies that we put in place, etc.
All right, you got Kaichur, then Giri. Kaichur. Abina.
Yeah.
Abina
Kaichur has a lot here.
Please forgive my voice. Mr. Jagdeo, you said in your opening statements that Guyana cannot develop if benefits are only felt by one set of people. I would like to know, how would you respond to persons who may say that the story of your presidency is about only one set of people benefited? Also, you spoke
Who this set of people? Let's see what was mentioned. Listen, ask her, who is this set of people? One set. Which set are you talking about? Yeah, which set you're talking about? Since if I mention the word, it becomes controversial. Which set?
many persons, politicians. Oh, which set of people benefited?
Yes.
Oh, well, persons are saying like the Bobby Rambles of Guyana.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's it. One set. So you're talking about individuals, and that we've been fair. Oh, okay, across race. So I'm glad that you don't get. It's not about race.
Oh no, I wasn't speaking.
Okay, I'm glad. I'm very happy about that.
Speaking about your friends.
Okay, all right.
Yes, sir. So, that question. And
Yes.
secondly, you said in speaking about the coalition, AFC, APNU, and the head of that list, you said that he will have a lot of power, which will be Mr. Granger. Could you respond to people also who said that you were once in that position, you had all that power, and you abused it?
Well, that's absolutely untrue, because the people who told you that, I was never head of the list. Don't you realize that?
No, but you were president.
Oh,
When you
yeah,
were
but no, I'm
president-
talking about head of the list. You need to get your question straight. You linked it to
when
being
you
the
were
head of the
president,
list.
sir.
Hold on, all right.
So, I was never head of the list.
2006.
Ramatar, the general secretary of the People's Progressive Party, has always been the head of the list. So that's one. But we didn't have a confusion because we were in party. The president, I had the full support of my party. I didn't have to worry about them throwing out our MPs, etc., like they have. So that's one. The second thing is that I wonder if Badal is Jagdeo's friend. I know Badal used to come to the Ministry of Finance when I was Minister of Finance and sit down for hours outside. He used to get a couple of tons of rice and export it to Jamaica. And Badal today owns a ton of things. Factory, the feed factory, the hotel, etc. I remember Glenlal used to sell shoes, I think, in the border market, Starbuck market. Glenlal has a media empire now, tons of other things. I don't think Glenlal is my friend. I remember C.N. Sharma used to do refrigeration. He was a refrigerating technician. Today, look at all those properties along there, tons of properties. There was no Nigel supermarket. There were no, I can list a thing. There was no Amelia's Ward. So all those houses in Amelia's Ward that you see, the wonderful Amelia's Ward. There was no Eccles housing scheme, that all the big houses you see there. There was no Diamond. You know, really, is it only Bobby Ramroop who made progress in this country? I can list tons of people. I know that most of you drove and come here. Oh, you didn't drive? Well, then your editors are doing a bad job. You should get them to pay you more. Anyhow, all right, okay. The thing is that but that is my answer to them. I have seen changes in this country. I've seen the economy go from 300 million to $3 billion. I've seen more people own things. I've seen more people build facilities like the gravity, there was no gravity, there was no, 704, all Oasis, a ton of these things. I don't know they're all owned by Jagdeo's friends. And so I've seen big things happen, and I've seen small things happen. I've seen people, but I'm not saying we have solved all the tasks of the country. I'm not saying that. But I've seen changes in many, many people's lives. Gordon Mosley.
Mr. Jagdeo, sir, you have spoken about the need to educate young people who were not necessarily around about the past. Sir, do you think you're being a good history teacher when you're focusing
Since
on...
when did I claim to be a history
Well,
teacher?
you're talking about
I'm
the
not a
history.
history teacher.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, you're presenting the facts, the history from...
No, but I'm not a history teacher.
Okay, so do you think you're...
Are you a history teacher?
I've never been.
Okay, well
I
then
did
all right.
History, but
Okay.
I didn't teach history. But sir, do you think you're being fair when you talk about lines for oil, when you talk about lines for flour and stuff like that, and you do not say to these same young people that those lines ended under Desmond Hoyt and under PNC government and not after 92? Do you
Yeah.
think you're being fair in trying to put everything on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
table to them?
yeah. But let's also talk about the policies in that era and what happened. That when we became bankrupt, we couldn't pay our bills. The IMF declared us uncredit worthy as a country, a bankrupt country. They were forced to go abroad begging, basically. And I saw Greenidge and a few others, and a structural adjustment program was imposed on this country, imposed on it. And that's how they forced the changes in policies, liberalization of trade, ensuring that the public sector was shrunk, running a primary current balance of a certain level, cutting some types of expenditures, ensuring that money that were held outside the Treasury that were brought into the Treasury. And since I made this point, allow me to digress for a moment. I've seen this big hullabaloo about GGMC running a parallel Treasury. But the GGMC Act allows you to keep an account outside of the consolidated fund. But not a cent of this money, the $3 billion, will go to Ashni Singh, or to Robert Prasad, or to Irfan Ali. These are three bright young ministers who've been trying to solve two problems. There is no parliament now, and we know that Gaisuko needs help. So, one, the account now earns probably less than 2%. So they're getting a commitment to investing this money that will bring greater returns to GGMC. We then help Gaisuko to get over this difficult period. And the money is used to secure 1,000 acres of land that will develop 5,000 house lots in Region 4 here, that will make sure that 1,000 Guyanese families become owners of some piece of property. So if the opposition is trying to kill it, are they saying, they're really saying to the sugar workers, you shouldn't be helped, and the industry should collapse, because if they don't get the money, they can collapse. This government is not going to allow sugar to collapse. And so the thing is that APNU and AFC, this coalition, wants sugar to collapse. That is why they don't want the resources to go to the sugar industry. And secondly, are they saying that we should stop the housing program? Because the land in Region 4, the only way we can get more lands for Region 4 to develop housing is from Gaisuko. There are no other private lands. So the government is buying land from Gaisuko, and by the same token, it's helping Gaisuko, but it is also ensuring that people who live in South Georgetown and other places who've been on the wait list, that they can get a plot of land in the future. So, not that anyone would steal the money, they're arguing about procedures, and they lose sight of people. One, the sugar workers, and two, the people who need the house lots. So when I hear about this parallel treasury, and even Greenwich and the former Auditor General speaking about it, and then I know that in 1992, again, that when we exported the gold, so the gold was bought with an advance from the Treasury, from the Consolidated Fund. The gold was sold in Canada and then kept in an account in Canada that was controlled by the Office of the President. It was never paid back into the Consolidated Fund. And the Office of the President controlled the proceeds from the gold account in Canada. They use it to pay salary, some people $15,000 a month. I don't want to mention the name. The person has died now. $15,000 a month. Some PSs who Hoyt had brought in at $10,000 a month at that time, US dollars. And they used it for a whole host of other purposes. And that was in the tenure of Anand Gulsaran and Carl Greenwich. And the two of them today are the most vocal people about parallel treasuries. It shocks me. It shocks me to the duplicity, the barefacedness of this whole thing, the shameless, thing, the shameless belief that we all have such short memories. I don't. But they believe, they know that most people would not know these things. So then they talk about they're reborn, new, fresh to the table. That is what bothers me.
I was asking generally, sir, if you think it's fair.
But it is fair. It is fair. So the comparatives, I just did one to show you why we need to educate young people. Because most of you here, how many of you knew that about the gold proceeds?
I did.
Oh, well, Adam was paid. Were you paid from the account too?
No. But
Oh,
I
okay,
also
all
know
right.
that you paid similar sums to people in your staff. Kobe Frimpong with $15,000 a month, and the list is long.
Kobe,
so you were doing the same thing.
no, not. You listen, two different things. You see, Adam Harris is clever. The same thing. First of all, Kobe Frimpong was never paid from a fund that was held outside the Consolidated Fund. Kobe Frimpong worked in Guyana prior to 1992. He was working at the State Planning Secretariat, receiving the same sum of money from the World Bank. Then Kobe Frimpong moved from the World Bank and was funded by US aid. So this is where the source of the funding was different. It's not the same thing by far stretch. We didn't pay Kobe Frimpong from a fund held outside the Consolidated Fund illegally. He was hired, and he is a good person. But again, because he turned out to be my friend, and maybe I shouldn't have friends, he turned out to be my friend, but he's a solid technical person, and I knew him before 1992. Before 1992. So it didn't happen after 1992. No, yeah, this young lady here, and then you. I'll come to you. I didn't see your hand. All right.
I just wanted to get a clarification. So are you confirming that the $3 billion from GGMC was always intended to go to Gaisuko?
Huh?
Are you confirming that?
Because if GGMC, it goes to GGMC, and GGMC uses it to buy the land. I'm not GGMC, sorry, housing, and then they use it to buy the land to secure the 1,000 acres of land that will then develop 5,000 house lots.
But you're saying mining areas.
But mining, no. These funds are state funds. They don't belong to the mining sector. The money accumulates from the royalties and from taxes, the 2% taxes. This money doesn't belong to the mining sector.
I'm saying the housing that they're going to build in mining areas.
No. They never said that because we have used money in the past to build roads in the mining communities, a number of other things. And so it has nothing to do with mining. It's like saying all the money that the government takes from the mining sector should just go back for mining. You know, like all the revenue. So if all the revenue we collect from Barbies must only go to Barbies. We don't balkanize revenue. We don't balkanize revenue. Anyhow, yes.
Neil Marks, Capital News. Sir, in the interest of transparency, could you say why it is that you flew to the States in a private jet? For what? Was it an urgent medical situation, and how much you paid for it?
That's none of your business. That's a private thing. The state didn't pay for it. It's none of your business because the state has not, since I left office, I've been on 2 checkups, that's it, directly, and I have not been reimbursed for it. I haven't received a cent on medical expenses since I left office from the state, not 1 cent. And so Starbuck News had it wrong because they said that the state paid for this. The state did not pay. That's my private business. That's my private business. Right. I asked you who paid for your friends or woman. Yeah, exactly. No. But it could be who pays for your friends. I don't want to say who which friend. Yeah. Well, I should. I don't want to get into that because I'm known for that, and that becomes a story tomorrow. So that's. But the clear thing is that I have not received a single cent from the Treasury for the 3 years that I've been out of the office for medical expenses. The state did not pay for any Medivac for me, nothing of the sort. Private business.
So just a clarification, do you intend to ask for reimbursement?
No, not for the Medivac, not for Medivac.
Okay. Just my substantive question, sir. Would Dr.
I have for my checkup, but not for the Medivac.
Would Dr. Jagan, Cherry Jagan that is, would he have been happy with your mansion up on the East Coast and that of other senior government officials? I'm asking in the context of the Jagan children criticizing the accumulation of wealth by PPP leaders and saying that it was not something that was in the vision of their father.
That Chedi Jagan wanted us to ride motorcycles all our lives. Let me tell you something. I don't think Chedi Jagan living in Bel Air Park at that time in a nice house was typical of most of Guyana. But Chedi Jagan lived at that time there. Did that weaken his commitment to the cause? Because at that time, that was a prime, I think it's Bel Air Park? Bel Air Park. New Haven. That was a prime area. It's a big piece of land, a nice house, and it still is a nice house. And did that weaken his commitment to the cause? Did that make him, corrupt or anything of the sort? So what is the point you're making? And what are they making? Because he lived there, but he was committed to the cause. My thing is that when I built my first house, they said it was too big. Then secondly, that I sold it for a lot of money, which is not so much now, because I know a lot of people now selling their houses for 2-3 times more than I sold mine for. And diamond. Okay, well, I don't know. But that was the criticism. And then if it's so much money that I got, where I got money to build a new house, and that my pension was too high, my salary was too high, and then they question all of that. But let me tell you, in 20-odd years in public office, if the worst thing that they can say about me is that I have a pension that they try to make look like I took for myself, which is not true, and that I have a big house, and that I earn now a lot of money abroad, then I'm good. After 20 odd years in public office as Minister of Finance and President, and everything that I do, I'm transparent about it. So I don't want people to think. We would like to see everybody progress. Everybody progress. So if you look at, again, I mentioned, I don't believe that ministers should have to live in a logie to prove that they're not corrupt. I don't believe that, because I believe they should, what they achieve honestly. Why should they be ashamed of investing their money in a house and a nice house, etc., like so many people are doing or aspiring to do? Why should they have to prove that? Chedi Jagan didn't have to prove that by living in a logie.